Have you ever jolted awake at 3 a.m., feeling an inexplicable urge to be conscious? You're not alone. Many people experience these nighttime awakenings. But what if I told you this isn't just your body clock misfiring? There's a hidden power in those early morning hours that could transform your life in ways you never imagined. In this video, we'll explore an ancient practice that taps into the mystical energy of 3 a.m. Why is this time called the divine hour? What blessings await those who embrace it? Get ready to discover a supernatural source of strength that could change everything. Are you prepared to unlock the secrets of the night? Have you ever felt a gentle stirring in the depths of night, as if an unseen hand was nudging you awake? For Sarah, a young mother grappling with sleepless nights and an inexplicable void in her heart, this experience was about to become all too real. Night after night, Sarah found herself wide awake at 3 a.m., her mind racing with worries. But on this particular night, something was different. As she sat up in bed, her heart pounding, she expected fear to creep in. Instead, a profound sense of peace washed over her. It was as if a warm, comforting presence had entered the room, enveloping her in its embrace. Sarah began to wonder if this midnight awakening held a deeper significance. Could this be a divine appointment, a moment when God was reaching out to connect with her? The stillness that had seemed so oppressive now felt sacred, almost holy. Our bodies follow a natural circadian rhythm, a 24-hour internal clock that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. But sometimes, this rhythm can be disrupted, leading to unexplained awakenings. What if these disruptions serve a higher purpose? As Sarah closed her eyes and whispered a simple prayer, "God, if you're here, I'm listening," she tapped into a tradition as old as time itself. Throughout history, many have found that the quiet hours between 3 and 5 a.m. hold a special power for spiritual connection and personal transformation. Think about it. Haven't you ever woken up in the middle of the night with sudden clarity about a problem you've been struggling with? Or felt an unexplainable urge to pray for someone? These moments of heightened awareness in the stillness of night might be more than just random occurrences. Many spiritual traditions place great importance on nighttime awakenings. They see these moments as opportunities for deep reflection and divine encounters. It's as if the veil between the physical and spiritual realms becomes thinner, allowing us to perceive God's messages more clearly. Consider the story of Jacob in the Bible. It was during a night of vulnerability and solitude that he wrestled with God, an encounter that transformed his life forever. Could it be that God often chooses these vulnerable nighttime hours to meet us, knowing that we're more open and receptive? As we continue to explore Sarah's story, we'll uncover how these early morning encounters can become powerful catalysts for spiritual growth and personal transformation. We'll see how embracing these moments, rather than fighting against them, can lead to profound changes in our lives. So the next time you find yourself wide awake at 3 a.m., instead of tossing and turning or reaching for your phone, why not pause and listen? You might just discover that in the quiet of the night, when the world is still, God is whispering your name. Have you ever considered that those moments when you're wide awake at 3 a.m. might be a divine appointment? In biblical times, the period between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. was known as the fourth watch, a time when extraordinary encounters with God became possible. Imagine yourself in ancient times, as the third watch closes and darkness envelops the world. As the fourth watch begins, the air shifts, carrying a sense of anticipation. Throughout the Bible, we see God choosing this hour to reveal himself powerfully. Consider Jacob's transformative encounter in Genesis 32:26. As dawn approaches, he declares, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." This moment during the fourth watch highlights the potential for profound spiritual growth in those early hours. Jesus himself utilized this sacred time. In Mark 6:48, we find him walking on water towards his disciples during the fourth watch, demonstrating God's desire to meet us in our struggles. But why does God favor this particular time? The fourth watch represents a powerful transition from darkness to light, mirroring our journey from fear to faith. It's when our defenses are naturally lowered, making us more receptive to God's voice. Think of it like a radio signal. During the day, there's static and interference from the world's noise. But in the quiet of the fourth watch, the signal comes through clear and strong. Your spirit, like a finely tuned antenna, is ready to receive God's message. Other biblical figures experienced divine encounters during this time. Moses received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai during the early morning hours. Samuel heard God's voice, calling him in the night. Even Gideon received his divine commission as dawn approached. This understanding adds new dimension to those 3 a.m. wake-ups. What initially seems like a frustrating interruption could be a sacred invitation. As you learn to lean into these moments, they might become treasured times of connection and growth, transforming your relationship with God and your perspective on life's challenges. The power of the fourth watch isn't limited to biblical figures. It's available to each of us, every night. Are you ready to accept the invitation? The next time you find yourself awake during these hours, instead of reaching for your phone or tossing and turning in frustration, why not pause and listen? Create a space of stillness and openness. You might be surprised by what you hear in the silence. As we uncover more about this sacred time, consider how it might apply to your own life. The fourth watch could be your opportunity for a divine encounter, a chance to experience the extraordinary in the midst of what seems like an ordinary sleepless night. Picture Sarah, wide awake at 3 a.m., her heart racing as whispers of doubt echo in the silence. Why would God want to speak to me? She wonders, tears welling up. I'm not worthy of his attention. Have you felt this way? In those quiet hours when the world sleeps, our minds can become a playground for our worst fears and self-doubts. It's not uncommon for anxiety to peak during these early morning hours. Our circadian rhythm naturally lowers our mood and energy levels, making us more susceptible to negative thoughts. The darkness and isolation can amplify our worries, creating a perfect storm for inner turmoil. But what if God is using these moments to draw us closer? Think of how many biblical stories involve encounters with the divine in moments of weakness and uncertainty. For Sarah, each night became a challenge, but also an opportunity for growth. As 3 a.m. approached, Sarah began to sit with her fears instead of running from them. She allowed herself to feel vulnerable in God's presence. Imagine sitting in a dark room, your fears circling like shadows. It's terrifying, isn't it? But what if you knew you weren't alone? What if you believed that God was right there with you, ready to shine his light into those dark corners of your soul? Sarah started a simple practice. Each night, as her fears surfaced, she would bring them before God. Lord, she would whisper, I'm scared. I feel unworthy, but I'm here. Please meet me in this place. This act of bringing her fears into the light began to change something within her. It wasn't easy. Some nights the fears felt overwhelming. But slowly, Sarah started to experience a new kind of strength. It wasn't a strength that came from having all the answers or feeling perfectly confident. It was a strength born from vulnerability, from admitting her weaknesses and allowing God to meet her there. What fears keep you awake at night? Is it worry about your children, anxiety about your future, doubts about your faith? Whatever it is, I want to encourage you to see these moments not as burdens, but as invitations. God isn't afraid of your fears. He's not put off by your doubts. In fact, he might be using these very struggles to draw you into a deeper relationship with him. As you face these fears, you might find, like Sarah did, that they begin to lose their power over you. Not because they magically disappear, but because you're no longer facing them alone. You're bringing them into the light of God's presence. Remember, the dawn always follows the darkest part of the night. As Sarah continued to meet God in her moments of fear, she began to experience a new level of peace and clarity. The 3 a.m. hour transformed from a time of dread to a sacred appointment with her Creator. She found that by confronting her fears in God's presence, she was actually stepping into a journey of profound spiritual growth. Have you ever noticed How the world seems to hold its breath at 3 a.m.? It's as if the universe itself is pausing, creating a sacred space for something extraordinary to unfold. For Sarah, this unique quietness that accompanied her early morning awakenings became a doorway to profound spiritual discovery. Sarah began exploring the concept of sacred silence, a practice revered in many spiritual traditions. This wasn't just the absence of noise, but a holy space where the divine could speak more clearly. It was like clearing out a cluttered room, making space for God's presence to fill every corner. Our modern world is constantly buzzing with notifications, updates, and endless chatter. We've become so accustomed to the noise that silence can feel almost alien. But what if, in all our busyness, we've been drowning out the gentle whisper of God? What if the most profound truths are spoken not in thunderous proclamations, but in the softest of murmurs? Sarah began to see her 3 a.m. encounters as invitations to step away from the cacophony of daily life and tune into a different frequency. She started simple, focusing on her breath and allowing her racing thoughts to slow. As she practiced sitting in stillness, she found her mind becoming more receptive, like a radio finally tuned to the right station. Science backs up the power of these quiet moments. Research has shown that silence can have profound physiological effects on our brains, reducing stress levels and promoting relaxation. It's as if God designed our very biology to benefit from these sacred pauses. Cultivating inner stillness isn't always easy. Sarah had to learn to be patient with herself, to resist the urge to fill every moment with activity or words. She discovered that true listening often meant letting go of her own agenda and simply being present. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself looking forward to these early morning rendezvous with silence. The quiet that once felt empty now seemed rich with possibility. She began to wonder, what might we hear when we truly listen in these quiet moments? What secrets of the universe? What whispers of love? What gentle guidance might be waiting for us in the stillness? Sarah realized that learning to listen in the stillness wasn't just about hearing God's voice. It was about becoming more attuned to His presence in every aspect of her life. The silence was teaching her to pay attention, to notice the subtle ways God was always speaking, always guiding, always loving. As the silence of 3 a.m. enveloped Sarah, a new question stirred in her heart. If God is always speaking, how do we learn to speak back? What if these quiet hours weren't just for listening, but for a divine dialogue? Imagine having a heart-to-heart with the Creator of the universe while the rest of the world sleeps. Sarah's journey had led her to this moment, where she began to see her early morning awakenings as invitations to deeper intimacy with God. But as she sat in the stillness ready to engage, Sarah found herself at a loss for words. How do you start a conversation with the Almighty? Mother Teresa once said, "God speaks in the silence of the heart. Listening is the beginning of prayer." Sarah took these words to heart as she explored different forms of prayer. She began with listening prayer, sitting in silence and acknowledging God's presence. "Here I am, Lord. I'm listening," she'd whisper, pushing aside her to-do lists and worries. On other nights, Sarah felt drawn to express herself through journaling. She'd write letters to God, pouring out her fears, dreams, and questions. This act of writing became a powerful tool for enhancing her spiritual conversations. As she documented her thoughts and the insights she received, Sarah created a treasure trove of encouragement for times of doubt. Sarah also discovered the power of artistic expression in her divine dialogues. Some nights, she'd sit with colored pencils and paper, allowing her prayers to flow through colors and shapes. It wasn't about creating a masterpiece. It was about offering her creativity as a form of worship and communication with her Creator. As Sarah experimented with these various forms of prayer, she found herself growing more comfortable in God's presence. The awkwardness of those initial conversations began to fade, replaced by a sense of anticipation. What would God reveal tonight? How might He speak to her heart in these precious hours? The intimacy Sarah cultivated in those early morning hours began to spill over into her daily life. She found herself more patient with her children, offering a listening ear to a stressed coworker, and noticing the beauty in everyday moments. During a challenging meeting at work, Sarah felt a sense of peace and clarity that she attributed to her strengthened connection with God. Perhaps the most profound change was in Sarah herself. Through these consistent 3 a.m. conversations, she was experiencing a growing intimacy with God that was reshaping her identity. The fears and insecurities that once plagued her began to lose their power in the light of God's love and acceptance. Sarah's world shifted dramatically one morning when her 3 a.m. prayer led to an unexpected breakthrough. As her toddler spilled juice across the kitchen floor, Sarah felt a surge of compassion instead of frustration. This simple moment sparked a realization. Her predawn conversations with God were reshaping her entire day. The concept of spiritual momentum took root in Sarah's heart. Could these brief, consistent encounters with the divine lead to substantial changes in her life? Each morning, prayer felt like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of peace and purpose throughout her day. Sarah's journal became a testament to her spiritual journey. She documented God's instructions and insights, creating a tangible record of her growth. In moments of doubt, she'd flip through these pages, finding strength in the faithfulness of God, revealed through her own handwriting. As days passed, Sarah's decision-making process evolved. She found herself pausing, reflecting on the wisdom gleaned from her 3 a.m. encounters. It was as if those quiet moments had fine-tuned her spiritual awareness, allowing her to hear God's whispers even amidst the noise of daily life. Her relationships began to transform. Sarah listened more intently, spoke with greater kindness, and extended forgiveness more readily. The compassion she experienced in God's presence seemed to flow through her, touching everyone she encountered. As weeks turned into months, Sarah saw clear connections between her nighttime insights and daytime challenges. A scripture that came to mind during prayer would suddenly illuminate a situation at work. A moment of clarity about a personal struggle would provide the courage to have a difficult conversation with a friend. Sarah's family and friends noticed the profound change in her demeanor. Her husband remarked on her newfound peace, even in the face of stress. Her closest friend asked what her secret was, noting a radiant joy that seemed to emanate from within. Reflecting on her journey, Sarah was reminded of C.S. Lewis's words, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." Her 3 a.m. encounters had indeed planted new dreams in her heart, dreams now taking root in her everyday life. As Sarah neared what felt like a spiritual peak, a new question emerged. How could she sustain this practice long-term? She realized that this journey wasn't about reaching a destination, but about walking faithfully with God, day by day, night by night. The challenge now was to maintain consistency, knowing that it held the key to continued growth and transformation. Sarah's journey of faithful walking with God had deepened, but a startling thought pierced through her quiet reflections. What if her 3 a.m. encounters weren't meant for her alone? Could God be preparing her to share this gift with others who struggled in the darkness of night? As the idea took root, Sarah felt both excitement and trepidation. She remembered Jesus' words in Matthew 5:14-16. "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." Could her 3 a.m. experiences be that light for others? Sarah took a leap of faith and opened up to her closest friend, Anna, about her nighttime encounters with God. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Sarah," she whispered, "I've been struggling with insomnia for months. I never thought to use that time for prayer. Your story gives me hope." This conversation sparked a transformation in Sarah's perspective. She began to see herself as a potential spiritual mentor, sharing her experiences to encourage others in their faith journeys. As she continued to share her story, many resonated with her experiences, creating a safe space for others to open up about their spiritual struggles and victories. During a small group meeting at her church, Sarah felt compelled to share about her 3 a.m. prayer times. The response was overwhelming, with several people expressing relief that they weren't alone in their nighttime spiritual encounters. Inspired by this response, Sarah proposed the idea of a 3 a.m. prayer group. It would be a spiritual gathering, with each member committing to pray at 3 a.m. for a week at a time, knowing others were joining them in spirit. They would share prayer requests and testimonies through a group chat, creating unity in their solitary moments with God. The group quickly grew, attracting people from all walks of life. They established a rotation schedule, ensuring continuous prayer coverage throughout the month. Weekly virtual meetings allowed members to share experiences and encourage one another. Mark, a businessman who had always viewed his insomnia as a curse, shared a touching testimonial. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I have a purpose in those quiet hours. I'm not just lying there feeling frustrated. I'm interceding for others and growing closer to God." As we reflect on Sarah's journey and the hidden power of 3 a.m. prayers, consider how your own nighttime moments might be a gift, not just to you, but to others as well. Could God be calling you to be a light in the darkness, both literally and figuratively? As we conclude our journey through the fourth watch, let's reflect on the invitation awaiting us between 3 and 5 a.m. Transform sleepless nights into divine appointments for spiritual growth. God is waiting to meet you, speak to your heart, and equip you for life's challenges. Next time you're awake at 3 a.m., try sitting in stillness. Open your heart to prayer and reflection. What breakthroughs might await you? Remember C.S. Lewis's words, "We are what we believe we are." Do you believe God has a purpose for your sleepless nights? I challenge you to embrace your next 3 a.m. awakening as a sacred moment with God. Share your experiences in the comments below. Stay tuned for more Fourth Watch topics in future videos.